Hello team, welcome to our mainframe class. So this is part third video of CICS. So basics of CICS already covered in the previous video part 1 and part 2. In this video, we are going to discuss some important concept of the kicks. So let's start with today's topic. So our first topic is what is trace. So tracing is a general way of collecting detailed information about how a process runs. That means if anything is happened at that time, you can use the kicks trace. So kicks trace is handled by the kicks trace domain, and this trace follows the execution through the kicks code or through your application as well. You can see what function are being performed, which parameters are being used, and the value of the data field and all. You can see all the information through the trace. So there are different types of thread. First one is the application trace and second one is the system trace. So our next topic is system trace type. So you can set system tracing status by using appropriate system initialization parameters or by using CETR transaction, or you can set trace type commands when kicks is running. You can use CETR transaction and set trace type command to make the changes. Next slide will discuss what is internal SIT, auxiliary SIT and GTF SIT, what is trace table and all. So first one is the internal trace. So internal trace, that means every kicks region always have an internal trace, and this internal trace table is used as the buffer for other trace destination. When we talk about this specific table size, so minimum size of this internal trace table is 16 kilobyte and the maximum size is 1 GB. When the table fills record and wrap around from the beginning and continues, that means the internal trace table wraps when it is full, and when the end of the table is reached. Also, you can increase or decrease the size of internal table trace while the kicks is running. Next one is the auxiliary tracing. So auxiliary tracing is directed to one or two sequential data set. It has auxiliary trace dataset requires two 4 KB data buffers in kicks regions storage, and when you first start kicks auxiliary trace, any trace entries are directed to the initial auxiliary trace dataset, and it's automatically switching of dataset can be requested when one extend file, and if you initialize the kicks with auxiliary trace, it's started with the dfhauxt, and the dfhauxt is used as the initial auxiliary trace dataset. Next one is the GTF tracing. So GTF means generalized trace facility. So GTF is a part of MVS system that you can use to record kicks trace entries. So GTF tracing is helpful in determining problem when kicks is talking with the other system through like VTAM. Also, it can captures image. You can use GTF to record kicks trace entries and use the interactive problem control system like IPCS. GTF is a internal part of MVS system and trace the system like dash D to seek the address on start input output instruction, input output activity. If any page fault at that time, it can extract. So our next topic is kicks queue. So there are two types of queues available in a kicks. First one is the TD queue, that means transient data queue, and second one is the TS queue, that means temporary storage queue. So our first is TD queue. So let's understand what is TD queue. So it is a transient data queue. and is a transient in nature as it can be created or deleted quickly. Also, it allows only sequential access. The content of the queue can be read only once as it gets destroyed once a read is performed, and hence the name is transient. The record in TSQ can be read sequentially only. We have write QTD, that means it is used to write the transient data queue and they are available to retain in a file. Next one is the read QTD, that means it is used to read the transient data queue, and the last one is the delete QTD, that means it is used to delete the transient data queue. So our next topic is TDQ's type. So there is the intra-partition transient data, next is extra-partition transient data, and last one is the indirect. So intra-partition transient data are associated to CICS region locally and it's stored in this dataset, and in extra-partition TDQ data is directed to an external destination used for storing and retrieving data outside the CICS region. Example MSG user. Last one is the indirect. So indirect, that means it's the combination of intra partition and extra partition transient data set. So next types of queues are TSQ, that means temporary storage queue. So temporary storage queues has no need to predefined anywhere. By default, TSQ are created in the main memory. So the content cannot be recovered after the system crash. So if you want to recover, then you should define in TST. Also, it is facility to store and retrieve information available to the multiple transaction for later user. Also, TSQ is a queue of record that can be created, read and deleted by different tasks or programs in the same CICS region, and this is the record within the TSQ is identified by the relative position that is known as the item number, and this record in TSQ can be read sequentially or directly. Also, TSQ stores a DFH temp dataset.